there are many, many things that feed the spiritual and human being. These things that feed the spiritual and human being, they're like cords or connections that literally feed into the consciousness of the human being on earth. And today, we're going to take a look at what feeds you. Once you understand what feeds you, what sustains you, then you can begin to understand your belief systems, your consciousness. Then you can begin to truly work with changing it. So what feeds you, Shambhala? Let us discuss that on this day. And let us talk about it not from the point of judgment or right or wrong, simply what feeds you. We're going to ask each one of you who are listening or who are here today to do some homework, even after we leave here, to observe in your life what feeds you. So what feeds you? Now, we're not just talking about your physical body, for you know your physical body is fed by the food that you put into it. But how does it feed you? We want you to observe the various things you put into your body and what you are thinking or feeling as you put it in. Do you feed your physical body with life force energy foods like vegetables and fruits? Do you feed your body meats or starches and breads and grains? Do you feed your body with water? Do you feed your body with alcohol? Do you feed your body with sugar? And again, we're asking you to be the observer. There is no judgment at all, for you can indeed live an entire life feeding yourself with high sugar and very little other nutrients, whether it is from the plants or from the animals, and you can sustain your body. But be aware of how you feed your body, how it goes in, how it feels, what you are thinking as it goes in. So often we are asked these questions about the weight and about diet. It isn't necessarily about the specific food that you put in. It is about the consciousness that you have. There's a direct relationship to the beliefs that you have as the food is going in. Now, we felt some of you almost cringe or shuddered when we talked about nothing but sugar. Well, that couldn't be right, but that is a belief that you have. That is only a belief, and it is subject to change. Perhaps in years from now, perhaps there will be new books and new scientific studies that come out 50 years from now and say that these diets, these pure health food diets, could actually more harm to the physical body than a pure sugar diet. Who knows? It's all a belief, Shambhala. We're asking you to start observing that. How do you feed your body? How does your body respond to it? Are there digestive problems? Are there energy problems? When do you feed your body? Do you have the belief system that you have to eat breakfast? We hear these authors and these supposed experts talking about what is the optimum time to eat and why the breakfast is so important. Perhaps it is, but perhaps it isn't. They are all belief systems. It is all consciousness. It is all about how you are feeding yourself as a human spiritual being on earth right now. The food feeds the body, but much more than that also. What you are doing is feeding consciousness at the same time. You are digesting a whole set of belief systems, whether they truly serve you or not. What feeds consciousness? What feeds self? What creates reality? How can I allow myself to live in a broader, larger reality while on earth? Because the ability to do this truly provides the opportunity for more of the divine energy to come in. What are you feeding yourself, Shambhala, right now? Take a look at it. Are you feeding yourself, your consciousness, yourself with anger? So many do. Anger is an energy. It feeds the self. It brings energy in. Some of you wonder why you're trying to live these calm and peaceful lives. You think you have to be peaceful to be spiritual, and that is a bunch of crap. And then you bring anger in. Why are you doing that? Why do you feed yourself with anger? And there's no judgment here. Anger we feel is very appropriate sometimes. But what does it do for you? How is it serving you, Shambra? Sometimes you feed yourself with laughter. It sustains the spirit. You bring laughter in a variety of different ways. You tell jokes, or you associate with people who are funny. Or perhaps you sit down and watch a movie or a television show that has comedy. There is laughter in that. Laughter is an energy, and it feeds you. How are you bringing it in? Why are you bringing it in, Shambra? How does it feed you? Again, we're asking you to be the observer here. Everyone gets fed. Everyone brings in energy, whether you're human or angelic. Everyone is being fed. Once you understand how you're being fed, how you're bringing energy into your reality, then you can understand how consciousness is shaped, how belief systems define reality, and how then you can expand outside of what you believe to be the limitations of reality. Some of you feed yourself with victimhood. It is a very delicious food, isn't it? You like to be victim, so you complain about being the victim. You whine about being the victim. You like to blame others. You like to always talk about outside energies that are keeping you down and out. You love even making up things from past lives that will enable you to continue to be a victim in this lifetime, even if they didn't really happen to you. You are feeding yourself with victim energy. That's not so bad. It allows you to play an incredible role. It allows you to not have to face the high potential of who you are. You get to play this thing as a victim. It is feeding you. It's like an intravenous tube going right into your system, going right into your consciousness. You continue to feed off of it. You get hungry. And you call on victim energy. Well, what happens? Obviously, you're going to bring in the victimizers into your life. You're going to be creating them and bringing them in so they can put you down one more time, so it gives you something to complain about. It gives you a reason not to do something. We're not saying it's bad. Again, there's no judgment in this. We're only asking you to take a look at how you feed yourself. Some of you feed yourself through accolades from others who praise you for being a grand being, praise you for being a loving and wonderful human being. You need that food from the outside, those who tell you how awesome you are, how they've never met such an incredible human before. Some of you feed yourself that way. Again, there's no judgment. I love doing that. But I would have to say that at a certain point you get balanced enough to know that this is just flattery. Flattery is an energy and it comes into you. You can chuckle at it and you can also change it so it doesn't, explode you from the ego. You can literally change any of these feeding energies. Some of you feed yourself creatively. This is one I love. You love doing creative things because it brings about an energy. And it feeds you. It sustains you. Well, you are, at your very core, a creative being or a creator being. So when you do things like painting, when you do things like even a sketch on a notepad, idling your time while you're sitting in a boring meeting, well, that is feeding yourself. You're not doing it to show anybody else in the room. You're not even doing it because you think you're a grand artist. It is feeding a creative desire deep within you. It is actually helping to connect you to that creative center inside. Perhaps it was money. Money is an incredible energy unto itself. Money can be addictive. Money can also be a beautiful thing. There's a few in our group today of guests who were caught up in that. Their whole life, from childhood until death, was about making money. They were born into it in a way. It was their karma. They spent their whole lifetime trying to make money. They measured themselves and their consciousness based on how much money they made. Another one, status, is interesting because most of the time those who are fed by status don't recognize it. They don't even see it. It is so unconscious to them. They are fed by their status in the community. There's also their way of looking at themselves as others consider them to be the best in the neighborhood, the best in the community, the best in the state. It feeds their energy, and they continue to need more and more of it, more status, more acceptance by others. So status can be a way of feeding the self as well. Self-righteousness, another way of feeding yourself, becoming so righteous with everything that you are, even though you know inside that you may not be right. We have to laugh sometimes. The self-righteous are screaming out inside for somebody to truly prove them wrong so they can get off their stupid horse. But they will continue to present this self-righteousness. It is feeding them. It is a way of them validating themselves, even though something on the inside doesn't feel right. But they feed themselves with this type of thing. Again, no judgment. Self-righteousness can be a wonderful energy to play with, as long as you recognize that it is just a game. How do you feed yourself, Shambhala? Perhaps with a book, perhaps with television, perhaps with a movie. What is happening when you're deeply engrossed in any one of these entertainment things? When energy is coming back to you, you're feeding yourself. You've allowed yourself to go off into the ethers, into open consciousness, and experience what is being written about or acted about. But there is something that is feeding you. What is it? What is the energy that is coming back to you? Yes, you say to yourself often, I just need a break. I need to read a book or watch a movie. You think you are going into a neutral zone, but you are not at all. Many things are happening. Perhaps you are feeding yourself by getting out of your mind for a while and allowing your heart and your emotions to open. Perhaps you are feeding yourself by shutting off the outside world during that time so you can get back in touch with yourself. Perhaps you're feeding yourself by activating your imagination, particularly if you are reading a book, but also watching a movie or watching television. If you observe what is going on, not just in your head, but throughout your entire being, but is not quiet at all, even if you're watching some television program, you are feeding, you are looking at the screen, you are observing the actors and the characters. You're observing their environment, the roles that they are playing out, and you are feeding back into your consciousness. You are feeding back into your reality. It's like a gas line, a fuel line coming right into you, feeding you somehow. It all has value, wonderful value. Don't try to cut off the feeding. You get very, very hungry. It has value. We just want you to be aware of how you're feeding yourself. Drama. Some of you love the drama. You feed off of it. Either you're intimately involved in it, or you're on the peripheral of drama from others. Sometimes you say to yourself, but I am Shambhala, I am a spiritual being. I cannot get involved in the drama, but yet you are always around it. It is always happening with people around you. And you perhaps say, well, why does that happen? Why does there always seem to be drama around me? Because you're feeding off of it. There's a very strong, seductive, dualistic energy. It feeds your spirit. It feeds your reality and your consciousness. Sometimes you get caught up in it. You get so upset with yourself. I shouldn't get caught up in this drama. But you're getting caught up because somehow it's feeding you. It's giving you something. Be aware of that. Take a look at it. Make no judgment. Some of you feed yourself on work. You work very, very hard. You work long hours. You're always working. You justify it. You say, but I have to. I have to work. There's so much to do. We say you are just feeding yourself. You like that work energy. You like bringing it into your life. It's serving a purpose. What is it? What is that purpose? Now, be mindful here. It's not just about that you have some goals to achieve. It's not just about that you have limited number of viewers or that you're supporting family members and you have to work so hard. Those are all the surface level issues and reasons. There are some bigger reasons. How is it feeding you? What energy is that hard work giving you? What is it doing to sustain your spirit and your being? Here's another one. Depression. Now, a lot of you will say, well, depression doesn't feed me at all. It takes away from me. Well, not at all. Not at all. It is like a very thick soup, depression. It's very thick, very heavy, but it is feeding you somehow. It is a type of spiritual food. It's there for a reason. Not because you were bad, not because you have a chemical imbalance. My God, the last thing that it is a chemical imbalance. It's only what science sees, but it is something much different. It is an energy, and it is feeding you, even though you think it is robbing life force energies. Take another look at it. What is behind this energy of depression? Why is it in your life? Why is it a constant battle and a challenge? Relationships. How do they feed you? How does the energy of your mate, your partner, feed you? Or your children? Many times you tell us that your partner is taking away from you, keeping you back. No, your partner is feeding you. Somehow, some way, there is an energy there that is serving you in a way. It's bringing you energy. It truly is. It is helping to support and sustain your consciousness and sometimes even your illusions. It is serving a purpose. Your children, the same way, is feeding you somehow. What energy is coming in from that? Some of you have to have suffering in your life. Perhaps it is physical or emotional. You say you don't like it. But if you didn't truly like it, didn't truly want it, it truly wouldn't be there. You're bringing suffering in at some level because it feeds you. It is an energy. Imagine it is an energy that flows along a type of etheric pipeline coming right into you, right into your consciousness, into your now moment. Joy is an energy that can feed very well. Many of you receive joy in your life, and it feeds you just like any of the other energies do. Religion, one of the most toxic foods of all. Religion can feed those who are in that belief system. It continues to reinforce what they feel about themselves. It continues to reinforce their reality and their consciousness. Again, we're not saying that there's anything wrong with it. It is simply an energy, a food that comes into your being. Particularly those religions that have a lot of dogmas, a lot of rules, a lot of books, and a lot of studying. All that is, Shambra, it's food. Spirit energy food. Consciousness food. That's all it is. This energy of Shambra, of Crimson Circle, of Tobias and the Crimson Council, it is a food. Again, no judgment. Why are you bringing it into your life? What is it doing for you? Again, this is not a matter of deciding what's right or wrong, simply a matter of taking a look at how you're being fed, because once you understand how you're feeding yourself, then you understand how your reality is being created. Then you can understand how to change that reality. Then you can give yourself grander permission, you see. You feed yourself in so many different ways. You feed yourself through the air, just through breathing. Breathing is an incredible way of feeding yourself. It feeds your reality. It feeds your dreams and desires. Breathing feeds your spirit. And it's more than just taking the oxygen from the air. There is spirit energy in the air. You breathe that in. That feeds your reality base. It feeds your sense of beingness. When you do the deep spiritual breathing, it feeds partly your own desire for grander consciousness and expanded consciousness. Sleeping, it feeds you. It's not just about resting. There's an energy associated with sleep and with dreams that is feeding you. So often in your dreams you do go out into the other realms. You go out harvesting or shopping. You go out picking basically celestial fruit from the tree and allow that to come back with you into your reality here when you wake up. What happens when you are sleeping? Be aware how you are feeding yourself. How you are feeding your consciousness. Everything you do in your life, the healing work, the facilitation work, whether you are giving it or getting it, is about feeding yourself. Whether you are the victim or the victimizer, whether you are the creative or the intellectual, whether you are the child or the parent, all of it is feeding you, one way or the other, creating your reality. So when you're ready to change your reality, when you're ready to change consciousness, you have to be aware of how you're feeding it in the first place, how you are sustaining yourself. Whatever it is, Shambhala, look at it. Every aspect of your life, feel it. Feel exactly what's going on. Sex. You always like to talk about sex, so let's discuss it. It's not just about sex. You're feeding yourself somehow. You're bringing energy in, perhaps the energy of love from the other person. Perhaps the energy of physical satisfaction. But there are more. There are other layers and levels, other things that are happening. If you could, and not dishonor your partner, take a moment while you're engaging in love and sex. Take a moment and say, what is happening here? Don't tell them that's what you're thinking at the time. But say, how am I being fed? How is my spirit? How is my reality, my consciousness being fed at that moment? Everything you do is about being fed somehow or the other. That's why you are doing it. Perhaps you are teaching others right now or facilitating others. You are being fed. It's not just about working with them. Somehow you are being fed as well. It's an amazing thing to discover, an amazing thing to become aware of, all the different ways you're being fed. You want to do this without the judgment. You want to do it without determining right or wrong. Embrace every way you're feeding yourself. Love every part of it. Perhaps there are continuous struggles in your life. You just can't seem to get over the hump, as they say. Well, that's feeding you. One way or the other. It's not that God is handing this down and saying, we're going to make the road a little tougher for Mary today, just because, just because. Somebody has to have a tough road. Spirit doesn't work like that. You are deriving energy from it. It is helping you to shape and form consciousness and eventually reality. One way or the other, you're being fed off of everything. Very simple. You're at this point, Shambhala, where you need to begin observing it in every way. Keep a notebook. Make a record of it in your own being. Be very observant and aware of every different way that you get fed. All of your activities. Why do you do certain things the way you do? Well, not because you're a bad person. Not because you don't have willpower. Not because others are leading you to it. it's serving you in some very direct and obviously some very beautiful way. Alcohol and drugs, they can serve you. They can feed you. Well, it's not just about getting drunk or taking a trip, being doped up. There is another energy that comes in when you use the alcohol or the drugs. It is not just about the high that you get at that time. That is only what you think it is. Something else is happening there. You're feeding yourself somehow. What is it? Is it that you're feeding yourself an escape energy? Or perhaps a relaxation energy? Are you feeding yourself a way to expand your consciousness? Or are you feeding yourself a way to collapse your consciousness or perhaps deny it? You have to answer that for yourself. We can't answer that for you. But somehow you're getting fed on it. When you go out and take a long walk, something is happening. You're being fed. Oh, and love being fed, by the way. Love it. Love being fed. It's just energy that's coming in to serve you, to help you shape your reality. It's basically energy you are calling out for. It is like you are standing on top of a mountain, calling out for a certain type of energy, and then it comes in. Even if later you think it's negative, later if you think it's painful or limiting, somehow you're calling out for it. Your pets, they're feeding you. Not just with love, not just with acceptance. There's another exchange taking place. How is that pet feeding you? Some of this you might not be able to figure out in your mind right now. So just feel the energy. Don't even try to put definition or words to it. Just feel it. This energy from this beautiful pet is feeding me. I ask myself, how? And then wait for the answer. It will come to you. Well, it's not that the animal has to serve you and is going through a long and miserable life trying to make you happy. Some of you get into that low self-esteem energy. It's a way to feed yourself, but my gosh, there is tastier food out there than that. Sometimes you just can't accept that things are just beautiful and wonderful no matter how it is. Perhaps that pet just would have done anything to come back and be with you in this lifetime. Just because it loves you for no other reason. It's not that it was indentured to you. It's not that it had to be with you. It's not its bad karma that it ended up with you one more time. But some of you feed off that energy of low self-worth. My dog couldn't have possibly wanted to come back, you say, and probably had to. Look at everything. That is your homework. Look at everything in your life that is feeding you. Write it down if you want to. Sing a song about it if you want to. Oh, yes, we'd love to hear some Shamba songs. What feeds me? A poem or two, perhaps. As you begin to become very aware but non-judgmental and non-intellectual about what feeds you, you're going to be able to understand now what's creating your reality. And when you understand what creates your reality, then you can understand what changes your reality as well. You want to change reality? It is really quite easy. Some people say, well, how do you change consciousness? The very first thing is questioning the belief system that you exist within. You've all done that before. That's why you're a Shambhara. Somewhere along the line, in this lifetime, you questioned the belief system. Whether it was the one that was being co-created with your parents, your teachers, your nuns and priests and rabbis, whatever it was, you questioned it somewhere along the line instead of just going along. As you understand what feeds you, you understand why your consciousness is where it's at. Then when you start questioning the belief systems, you're questioning your reality that exists all around you. You question, why am I in this body? Why does this body have to sleep 8 hours at night? Why does this body have to consume certain types of food? Some of you create this grand level of nervousness when you have to go do something. You get nervous and your stomach gets all upset and you get sweaty and you get out of kilter And you think this is a bad thing. It's actually a wonderful thing. It's feeding you somehow. Fear is the same way. It feeds you. Now, once you begin to understand there is no charge on it, once you begin to understand it is simply coming in to serve you in creating your reality, your consciousness, then it gets very fun. Then you can start playing with anything. You can start shifting anything. Questioning reality will cause it to break down the way it was molded, break back down into the original energy form. So now you can create new consciousness. So what do you want consciousness to be in your life? Well, that is up to you. That is up to you. Again, remember, consciousness isn't from the mind. It's from the deep, soulful part of yourself. It's based much on experiences from the past that have created your level of belief in consciousness. And it can be changed at any moment if you truly believe it. If you truly let it be very flexible and very open. Question belief and it begins to change. You believe that change is not good. Humans believe that in general. Many of you still believe that. Change, you think, is going to upset the apple cart, is going to lead you to unknown areas. And sometimes it is easier to stay in the known than to go into the unknown. So change the consciousness surrounding change. So you allow yourself now to go through change. Change is natural. Or perhaps not. Change is evolution, energy seeking a new level, consciousness desiring to express itself in a new and different way. So allow the change to come in. Shambhala. Allow your consciousness to open up. What happens as your consciousness expands, your reality starts changing all around you. You begin to feed in a new way. You're going to feel like the old you had been connected to thousands and thousands of feeding tubes, coming from anger, coming from laughter, coming from love, coming from gossip, coming from work, coming from suffering. All these feeding tubes flowing in to sustain you. When you move beyond, when you question reality and allow consciousness to change, you're going to find you don't need all these feeding tubes anymore. You're going to find that the feeding of self comes from self. It comes from within, as you would say. It's the feeding tube that was always there. From the divine to the human, from the divine to the one that was always there, feeding you from the very beginning, sustaining your life. The pure single breath of spirit that has always fed you, is always there, going in, going out, going in, going out, predictable, always there, always with you. Then you can start disconnecting all those other feeding tubes. They were just temporary. Actually, they were just getting in the way. They were just hindering you. You'll find that things start truly changing. You feed from within. You don't need it from the outside. Now, you have so many more new and free choices. You're not in bondage, or you're not held hostage by any of these external feeding methods. Your consciousness then will start changing very quick, and your reality will seem so fluid, so open, so malleable by you, the Creator. It's very simple. Very simple indeed. So now we're going to ask you to do this homework. If you choose, we're going to ask you to be very aware. Don't just take this shout that you have given yourself, walk out the door and forget about it. Work with it. Work with these energies. How does anything in your life feed you right now? Be patient with it. Spend some time and love and energy with it. Don't just drop it until next month where we have to say, did you actually become aware of what's feeding you? If you're truly ready to move beyond, to move on, Shambha, be aware of everything that feeds you.